So props wise, I've just got a block this morning. I shouldn't need any more than that. So we're going to start this morning's class on the floor. So easing yourself down and chinning towards the chest, hands behind. Use your shoulders and your abdominals together to lay yourself down. And then I'm going to bring the block underneath the head and just lengthen the legs out a little bit. And wriggle out through backs of the legs, through the shoulders, ankles and wrists. Taking some deep breaths. And long exhales out. A little wriggle through the neck. Just really settling in, checking out. And I'm going to bring the feet together onto the center line so the toes can touch. And I'll draw my right knee in towards my chest. Put the hands around the shin or the back of the thigh and just ease that leg in towards the body. And hopefully the heel and the calf of the opposite leg remain attached to the floor. And then we're going to release that leg back out and take it into the opposite side. And then we'll release that leg as well. With the legs together, I'll take the block out from behind the head, have the block held directly above the chest, palms facing in with the hands. And I'm going to exhale and let the legs flex forwards and bring the block to the floor behind me, just opening the shoulders and the chest a little bit. I'll inhale back up and flex the toes towards me. Exhale the legs away. Down. It's called an astro flow. The idea of stretching out in two directions is that you connect all of the muscle fibers up, activate them through the body. And then I'm going to take the block behind the back of the head again. Take a little breath from there. Allow the knees to come in towards the body, just taking the hands on top of the knees and making circles. Now, the circles is one thing. As you exhale and draw your knees back in towards you, use your abdominal muscles to just lift your tailbone off the floor a little bit. Try and keep your neck and your shoulders relaxed as you do so. This is called Apanasana. And we'll let the feet come back down to the floor, closer into the body, so heels walk in. And we'll take the arms out nice and wide. And we'll let the legs roll over to the left side, into the right, try and keep the shoulders on. Encourage yourself to have your hands in line or a little lower than your shoulders, so the shoulders are able to stay away from the ears, especially if you're a bit tight around that area. Kind of tuck them underneath and relax them a little bit. And then we'll lift the knees back up and take it across to the opposite side. And then we'll draw the legs back up again, and we'll move into a little happy baby. So taking the knees wide, toes together, slide the hands down the shins, around the outside edge of the feet towards the little toe, knees drawn in. And slowly lift the heels towards the sky, knees down, tailbone drawn down towards the floor, and then let the head come back down gently onto that block. If you find yourself rocking a little bit on your breath, that's fine. You're actually trying to draw your tailbone down to the floor. So there's an engagement of some muscles inside the pelvic bowl and in the back of the hips. Draw it down. You sometimes feel like you need longer arms. And then we can release from there. I'm going to take the block out again and bring that between the thighs so that I now want my heels directly lined up underneath my center of my kneecaps and heels underneath the knees themselves. I'm going to bring the hands in towards the side of the body for bridge pose. I'm going to wriggle the shoulders under a little bit, draw the lower back into the floor, start to lift the tailbone, allow the hips to rise, a gentle press into the hands and squeeze the knees forwards, and obviously try and hold the block, and then just rolling it back down on the exhale. We'll take a breath at the bottom, roll it up on the exhale, breath at the top, roll it back down. That's 2, got 6 more to do. Halfway. That's more to do. I'm going to take the block again, put that behind the back of the head. Bring the feet right and close to the body. And let the left knee come in towards me as I bring my hands and interlace around the back of my left thigh. And extend the leg towards the sky, flex the foot, so toes towards me, and then slowly begin to lengthen out the right leg along the mat. You're going to send the sitting bones away evenly, again, possibly getting a bit of a stretch around the back of the shoulders, across the chest. You're actually trying to press the heel up and the hip down in the high leg, and also press the thigh away from you. So you're moving in 3 directions at the same time. I'll turn the thigh in a little bit on the long leg that's on the floor, so the toes point as close towards the sky as we can allow. And then I'll release with the legs and bring them back in. And we'll just swap over to the opposite side. I'll draw both knees back in towards the bottom. Take the block out again, put that between the thighs. We're going to keep the knees close in towards the body, taking the arms out wide. And we're going to actually just let the legs roll over towards the left, keeping the shoulders on the ground. But we're going to keep the feet flexed a little bit and let the knees and the feet hover from the ground if they don't naturally do that anyway. And then we'll bring the legs back up to the center and roll across to the opposite side on an exhale. You can turn the head as well from side to side. And you don't need to worry about whether you get to the same depth on each side. Just doing a very slow, controlled roll from side to side. And if you find yourself pressing into the back of the arms, if you can connect a little bit more with your abdominal muscles and firing the lift from the sort of the core and the hips and the legs, letting the arms stay out of the equation. Okay, I'll come over to my right side for the last time and move the block out of the way. Let the legs roll down to the ground, hands come over and slide gently into a sitting posture. And then from there, you can tuck those ankles underneath and the hands into the front of the mat to all fours. I'm going to lengthen the legs out. Take a little breath from there. And I wanted to keep the hips high. Quite often in classes, we see people dropping the hips down. So we want to keep them about the same height as the shoulders. And rather than letting the chest drop down to the floor, you want to press away from the ground. Like there's a nasty smell down there you want to get away from. You're pressing out through the heels a little bit and drawing the belly in. And then we're going to play Hatha cake. So we're going to take the, in this case, the left hand away from the floor, tap the right shoulder, bring it back down, cross over to the opposite side. Try to do that with the minimal amount of roll from side to side. Now, if you do this with your hands too far forwards of the shoulders, it'll put more strain on. So you want to make sure that the hands are as close to being underneath your shoulders as you can. Try and keep the hips high. You're just pattering from one side to the other. You could try and take both hands away from the floor at the same time if you wish, but it's probably a little tricky. Just give a few more seconds. And then we'll just walk ourselves into a down dog. So lifting the hips up and then start to move the hands towards the feet. So we come into the back of the mat, into our first forward bend, standing version. So fingertips on the floor at least. Bend your knees to accommodate the length of your hamstrings and the tightnesses in the lower back. We're drawing the belly in, pressing the feet down a little bit, and then the head hang. Just drawing the shoulders away from the ears a little. Make some space for us to breathe. And then we'll bring the hands onto the hips. Shoulders and elbows back, soften the knees a little bit. Lengthen the spine up and just let ourselves rise. Let's shake that out. Walk into the front of the mat. Allow myself to take my feet hip distance apart. I'll bring the hands in towards my heart as I take a breath in. On the exhale, and allow myself to hinge at the hips. Move myself down to the floor. Into that forward fold. I'll take the right foot to the back of the mat. Take a little breath from there. I'm going to let the knee come down to the floor, keeping the toes on the back foot tucked under for the time being. I'm going to bring the hands alongside the body, so my torso is resting against the thigh a little. I'll take the hands out and see if I can line my arms up with my torso and then draw the tailbone down to lift the body up. And I just want to bring myself into an upright position rather than arching the lower back. I'll bring the hands back down to the floor, take a little breath, lift the back knee, drop the heel in, and I'm going to take the hands alongside the body again to lift up that little bit. This time just the right hand comes forwards and I lift up into my warrior two. I bring the hands back in towards my heart, rotate towards the floor, lengthen the arms out as I extend over the front side, bring the hands to the floor and then lift the back heel and step myself back gently into down dog. Coming forwards into plank, I'm going to lower the knees to the floor, keep the hips high, and then bend the elbows back, chest between the hands, 8-point prone pose, and then lengthen the feet away, inhaling into low cobra. So really little effort into the hands. They're just drawing a little bit towards the back of the mat. So it helps with the squeeze of the shoulder blades. Do my best to keep the thighs and the toes attached to the ground and lengthen the legs away as they lift, and be careful to avoid lifting with your neck. I want it to come from the middle and lower back area. And for the last time, I want to lift back down to the floor. I'm going to take the hands towards the bottom of the rib cage, shoulders and elbows back, tucking the toes under, sit onto the heels, turn the hands forwards, and bring myself into sort of slightly elevated child's pose. Now the choices here are to lift the knees directly up from the floor into down dog, or come up into tabletop first, and then move back into your down dog. So you can decide how energetic you feel. And then from that down dog, we're just going to stay there for a couple of breaths. Letting the heels press towards the back of the mat, checking the hands feel flat, no gaps underneath. Rolling the shoulders out to the side a little bit, lifting those hips high. And then we'll take the right knee in towards the chest and bring that through for a lunge. Lift up onto the fingertips, drop the hip a little bit, press out through the back heel, and when you're ready, you're going to push off the toes into the forward fold. Try and come in deep, and then bring the hands onto the hips, and let ourselves lift up. So if you've traveled back a little bit on your mat, just bring yourself that little bit forward so you don't eventually run off the mat towards the heart. We'll come down again towards the ground. And then when we're ready, the left foot goes back into the lunge and we drop the knee. Toe stays tucked. Hands come alongside the body. We keep the front knee over the ankle. Let ourselves line up, palms facing, and then draw the tailbone down to lift. Whole body comes up, so the legs do move a little bit. Come back down to the floor. Lift the back knee. Drop the heel in for warrior two, hands alongside the body. Get a partial lift, and then using the arm to help cartwheel up. Hands come back in towards the heart. We extend out over towards the front of the mat. Then hands to the floor. Lift the back heel. Step ourselves back into our down dog. We come forwards into the plank. Knees to the floor. Elbows back. Chest down. Feet away. Low cobra sequence begins again. Last lift. Hands to the bottom of the ribs, shoulders and elbows back, push into the floor. Just back into that elevated child's pose, head to the ground. And then you decide whether you want to lift from here or from tabletop. So it's obviously stronger, lifting from the floor directly. The more impulse on the, or more impressed into the knees when you lift. And also it takes a little bit more burden into the shoulders. So it is generally a stronger pose. Last breath in. And then on the inhale, we'll bring the left leg through. Bring that into the lunge. Relax the shoulders, push off the toes. On an exhale, hips lift and press, feet down. Then bring hands to the hips and lift up. There's a lot of little pauses really. It may look like we're moving through sequence by sequence in a nice flow, but there's lots of little pauses. We'll take one more breath and ease our way down to the floor. We're taking the right foot back again into the lunge. On the fingertips, going to see if we can bring the hands alongside the body, just a little bit of a lift, palms face in, belly draws in. And then we're slowly going to take the hands forwards, line up with the torso, and then draw the tailbone down again. To lift up high. Let the hands come out wide and down to the floor. We're stepping back into our warrior two position and bring the hands again alongside the body. This time just a right arm lifts forwards and we come up. Hands coming towards the heart. We rotate, extend out towards the front of the mat. Bring the hands down. Step it back into our down dog. This time we're going to take a half plank. Push you forwards. And then move that into our dog. As we breathe in. Roll the hips up towards the sky. Looking over the feet back into down dog. Right knee comes into the chest, breathing in. Exhale the foot through for the lunge. To the fingertips, breath in. Push off the toes. And fold it in. Hands onto the hips and we lift up. Hands to the heart. Exhale to the floor. Left leg back. Hands alongside the body. Find your balance. Get a little bit of lift. Keep the back leg strong as you press out through the hands. Draw the tailbone down to lift up. Arms float out wide. Hands come to the floor again, just for steadiness. We drop the heel in, ready for warrior two. We lift again. Left hand comes forwards. We cartwheel up. Hands in towards the heart. We press forwards with the hands. And out over the front thigh. Then down to the floor. And stepping back into our down dog. Come forwards into the plank, half plank, to up dog, and back into down dog. And we'll draw the left knee breath in. Exhale through for the lunge. And step into that forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we lift up. Hands into the heart. Exhaling down. Right foot back, drop the heel in, ready for warrior two. Hands alongside the body. Right arm lifts us up. And then we're going to take the hands behind the back. Just draw them down towards the floor, tuck the tailbone in. We're going to come into humble warrior. So we turn chest and hips towards the front of the mat. Lengthen out towards the front thigh. Take a breath. And then start to lift the hands high as we let the head bow down towards the floor. Looking towards the back foot, trying to keep the hips on the center line of the mat. And try to ease your shoulders away from your ears and at the same time squeeze them together lightly. This takes a little bit of thinking about when you're upside down. Bring hands back to the floor. Step ourselves back into our down dog. Come into the plank, half plank, and up dog. Draw ourselves back in. Right knee to the chest, breath in. Exhale the foot through from the lunge to a forward fold. And onto the hips, soften the knees a little, flat back. Hands to the heart, breath in, last side. Exhaling down. Left foot back, dropping the heel in, warrior two. Hands come behind, tailbone down, belly in. Roll it through. Extend it out. Take the breath, lift, hands, send to the hips, drop the head. And then bring the hands back to the floor. Step it back to down dog. It comes forwards into your plank, half plank. Up dog. Into down dog. Draw left knee in. Exhale through for the lunge. And press into that forward fold. So feet down and head, hands low. Hands come onto the hips and lift up. Bring the hands in towards the heart. Exhaling down to the floor. Taking the right foot back for warrior two. We'll lift. Right arm extends out and open up. As we arrive, we'll turn the palm on the front hand and flow gently towards reverse warrior. And come back into warrior two. Extend out over the front thigh, taking the top arm high. And we take the arm towards the front of the mat. Extended side angle. Let the hands come down gently to the front inside of this thigh and leg. And then walk the fingers around to the long side, turning the toes in. Keeping the spine long, we press down through the feet to look after the ankles. Otherwise, it can feel a little bit strong around the outside edges here. And then bring your right hand on the floor underneath your chest. Return the body towards the left. And then extend the left hand towards the sky. We'll bring the hand back down to the floor, squaring the chest to the ground, and then turn it to the right. And roll through. And then bring ourselves down. So as you're turning the body, keep trying to press the feet down. It's easy to kind of get a little bit overloaded sensory-wise and just start to focus a little bit on the upper body. Try to keep the connection grounded to the floor through the 3 points of contact that we have. One hand, 2 feet. Come up for the last time on this right side. And then walk the fingers around from the side to the front of the mat. Back into lunge. We'll press off the toes and bring ourselves into that forward fold. Hands come onto the hips and lift up. Hands in towards the heart again. Take a breath. And you can exhale down towards the floor. Left foot back and drop the heel in. Let ourselves lift into our warrior two. Turn the palms into our reverse warrior. Come back into warrior two. And extend out. Turn the chest up towards the sky. Bring the hand over and out to the front of the mat. Lift back. Take a little breath. Bring the hands in towards the heart. And bring both hands down to the floor. I'm going to walk them around to the long side as we did before. Only this time I'm going to turn the heels in. Sorry, turn the toes in once, then the heels in once. Bring the toes in again, and then bring the heels in again. That allows me to come into more of a deep squat. I can allow myself to wriggle my bottom down to the floor. So, sorry for showing you the back end of the pose. Bringing the hands onto the thighs. You can just have a little bit of a rock out. Get to that comfortable place where the knees feel like they're wide apart and over the ankles. And you've got a little bit of opening into the groins. So just a little wiggle away. So at this point, we're still taking a little bit of weight through the arms and the shoulders. And I'm going to see if we can tuck the tailbone down a little bit more, get the spine a little more erect. Bring the hands in towards your heart. We'll slowly straighten the legs out and take the arms out wide. So moving through a star pose, we'll bring the hands above the head. Turn the palms out. We'll see if we can sink slowly back. Bring the hands in towards your heart. And let yourself flow back up. Hands go wide again. And we sink. So we want to give enough time for the joints to be prepared for what's happening to them. And also give us that nice deep muscular stretch as well. One last time, lifting up. Bring the hands in towards the heart this time. Turn the toes in, heels out. Allow ourselves to hinge forwards with a flat back. Fingers come to the floor. We take a breath. You might need to adjust the stance of the feet out a little wider. And then allow yourself to hinge from the hips. Down deep. Into a wide leg forward fold. Again, just pressing the feet down. Looking after the ankles, pushing the thighs together a little bit. And then we'll lift up. Put the fingers around into the front of the mat. Take a little breath. We'll step into a forward fold. And then from there, we'll bring the hands onto the hips. As those lift. We'll take the hands high, palms come together, index finger lifts up. And then we'll take it into a little bit of a back bend. So sending the feet down and the hips back. Roll the shoulders out wide. Lengthen out through the arms. One more breath. Bring ourselves back into the center. And relax. And shake it all out a little bit. So I'm going to come more towards the middle end of the mat. And we're going to take Warrior 3. Now you could move the block out in front of you and use that to place the hands on if you want to do a lower version of Warrior 3. And just bring your hands down and using the block for a little bit of support. It is wobbly by design. So it still gives you the full effect of Warrior 3, but just makes you feel like the floor is a little closer. But otherwise, we're going to see if we can take this as the sort of the more of the aeroplane version. When we're higher up, the hands are away from the floor. We'll take them out wide, see how a balance feels. If we can keep nice and square, then we'll bring the hands forwards as well. So to access this, we're going to have the feet about hip distance apart, and we'll soften the knees a little. Bring the hands in towards the heart, and we'll move into a chair pose. Now, as you do that, allow yourself to have a little bounce. And that just allows you to set your feet and your ankles nicely. They really start to kind of take up and support your body fully. Otherwise, from a standing position into the chair pose, you can roll the feet out a little bit, go onto the outside edge, and then when you try to launch yourself into a Warrior 3, you're already kind of exposed yourself to a wobble you didn't need. We'll load the weight into the right leg and draw the knee a little higher. And then we're going to lean forwards and extend this leg out towards the back of the mat at the same time. Try and keep the hands in towards the heart. If you need to, bring the hands down onto the block, you can do. Now you're trying to raise the back leg to about the height of your hip and have the body parallel to the floor. And then float the arms out wide, keeping the body square to the ground. Press out through the back heel to get lift. And then if it feels good, you take the hands forwards, palms facing in. And then we're going to allow ourselves to slowly bring the fingertips down to the floor. a little bit faster than I did. And soften the front knee and bring the feet back down to the ground. So hopefully a happy landing. Bring the hands onto the hips and we lift back up. So I'm trying to get 5 breaths in with the arms extended out. I get to about 4, 4.5, and then my knees start to buckle on me, my ankles go. So, it's just building up tolerance and strength slowly. Feet parallel again, keep distance apart, hands in towards the heart. That little bounce, get those feet to feel like they're spread out, get the ankles to feel like they're working for you. Steady yourself, load the weight into the left. Right leg slowly comes up. When you feel balanced, you're going to lean forward slowly. Try and keep the body long rather than rounding the back. Let the eyes slowly move down the floor to the mat directly underneath, and then see if you can float the arms out. More than okay for you to reach your hands down onto the blocks. So if we can get a little bit of a lift up. And then trying to keep the body square to the ground, take the hands forwards. And then soften the front knee, bring the hands to the floor. And allow yourself to step back down gently. We'll smooth the block out of the way if you were using it. Bring the hands forwards a little bit, step back into a down dog shape. Stretch out both legs. And then move into a plank to come down onto all fours, sort of a couple of rounds of cat-cow. Just to let us recover the breath a little bit and get some flexion back into the spine. So those muscles that are holding us up, keeping the spine long, flat, they're working very hard. This allows us just to kind of ease them out a little bit, get over the shock of what they've just done. Also helps to settle the breath. Now I'm going to tuck the toes underneath, allow myself to sit back onto the heels. I'm also going to bring my block with me to start with. So I'm just getting a little bit of an extra toe stretch in here. About 30 seconds, just to really open the joints, stretch out the muscles and the tendons and the feet. As we know, we've got as many bones in our hands as we have in our feet, or the other way around, depending on which way you want to look at it. So if you do have a thumb, it's called a big toe. It's just not opposable. But in theory, we should be able to move the bones in the same way. It's just a connection that we're looking for. And I'm going to come forwards again onto all fours and bring the knees together, take the feet out wide. I'm going to sit back into hero's pose. So if you're able to get your sitting bones to the floor, great. If not, then you can take the block. If you need more than a block, by all means, stick 2 blocks under or block a brick, whatever is the right height for you. You should be able to keep the thighs together, knees on the floor, and the toes pointing backwards and the body sitting up. So a little bit of a deeper stretch into the knee joints for us. Kind of massages the back of the calves a little bit, gives us an opportunity to sit up nice and tall. So again, just aiding, catching our breath a little bit. But at the same time, doing some work in the body. Letting your breath and your mind calm down at the same time. Okay, we'll take a little breath from there and let ourselves lift back up and take the block out to the side. Don't need that for the moment. We'll come back onto all fours and just ease those legs out towards the back of the mat. So a tiny bit of a stretch. And then from there, I'm going to take a little bit of a side bend, side plank work. So I'm going to allow my left hand to come a little more in line with my left knee. And then pivoting on my left knee, I take my foot out to the side of the mat. And I'm going to slide the right foot to the back, drop the heel in. Now, generally what happens with that is that your hips move over towards the left as well. So start to press them towards the right side as you bring yourself back up. And you might find that when you're in that position, you can take the foot further out to the side, so it increases the balance. And you want to make sure you feel like your hand is underneath your shoulder, the top arm is up towards the sky. We're going to take a little breath from there, and then we're going to see if we can lift up onto the fingertips. So we're going to press the foot down, it's out to the long end of the mat, take a little breath, and on the exhale, it's a little bit of poof, and we're up onto the fingertips. So we want to stay there. So really the body is lifting off and the fingertips holding it, just there for a little bit of balance and assurance. And then we're going to turn the heel of the long leg up towards the sky. I'm going to keep the toe on the floor to start with. It's starting to get a little stronger. And then keeping that angle or that rotation in the hip of the upper leg, we're going to see if we can bring the foot to about the height of the hip and just hold that up. So trying to lift your body out of your fingertips and trying to keep your leg high at the same time. So a little bit of a balancing act. And then we'll bring the foot down, hand down, top hand down, and bring ourselves back towards the ground into that tabletop position. So we start with the hands shoulder distance apart, knees hip distance apart, and then we bring the right hand in line. We spin the right foot out to the side, left foot goes back, drop the heel in, press the hips forwards as we lift up, check, hands in shoulder position, spin the back foot out, or the bottom foot a little bit further out for more balance if you can. Always play around with how that feels in the joints. When you're ready, you're going to take a breath in, press down through the back foot, lift yourself up into the fingertips. Get used to the idea of holding your body up with your torso muscles, so it's your obliques and transverse abdominal, and lower back muscles that are doing the work. Going to turn the heel away from the floor. Big toe stays connected. When you're ready, going to lift the foot. Now, I would suggest that the thing that you don't want to do is look towards your back foot to see if it's the right height. Try and feel it. The reason for that is if you turn your head down towards the bottom of the mat, you start to curve your spine, your hips fall out from underneath you, and it gets harder to catch your balance. So allow yourself just to feel. Last breath in. Bring the feet down, hands down, gently back onto all fours. I'm going to take the block again, place that underneath my bottom, take a seated twist so the legs come out. Give the knees a little bit of a rub. This took a lot of weight in my case. And we'll take the left leg underneath, out to the right. So the left knee is pointing forwards, bring the right foot across. Tilt the pelvis forwards a little bit so we get that extension through the spine. It's easy to breathe. Left arm comes up and across, little cantilever, arm and leg. And then I'll release from there. Legs back out, and then take it into the second side. I'll take the legs out wide and just wriggle on to the front edge of the sitting bones. Going to take a little breath from here. Allow ourselves to take the left hand around the back. And we're either going to bring in the fingertips onto the right thigh, or we're going to take the waistband of your trousers. So turn my chest towards the outstretched left leg and bring the hand onto the right shin. And I'm going to slowly lengthen out. See if I can bring my elbow onto the shin of my right leg. So looking towards the left shoulder a little bit. Now, if you're able to extend out far enough, you might be able to then hook your middle finger, ring finger, not ring finger, index finger, middle finger. I'll get there in a minute. And the big toe. And you want the big toe pointing up towards the sky. And we're going to lengthen out through the heel, but we'll also draw the hip back in towards the groin a little bit as well. We do the same with the opposite leg. So it's not just the body that's doing the work of the upper body, it's the legs that are contributing quite a lot as well. A few more breaths. And then we'll release. So let's come back up. We'll rotate to the opposite side. So take the hands around. Again, use the waistband or the thigh. You might find it easier on one side than the other, not a problem. Toes point towards the scalp. Take a little breath. We slide out gently. So the first thing we're going to do is try and get the elbow onto some part of the leg. So it feels like we're sort of secure. And then we're going to take a couple of breaths here. Start to work out through the heels and draw the groins in at the same time so the legs are fired up. And then we'll see if we can extend out a little further and maybe reach the hand out. So trying to keep the elbow touching into the leg, looking up and across to the right shoulder, drawing that back a little bit. And releasing, coming back up. Use the hands underneath. We're going to come into one last little bit of core work. And take the block for the back of the head. Knees are high. Spine down. Get a nice long spine and then draw the knees in towards your body. Bring the heels, toes, thighs together. Point the toes up towards the sky as you lengthen the legs up towards the ceiling. Take the hands directly above the head. And to start off with, we'll take that one with the block out from behind the head. Now draw the belly down. Keep the lower back connected. Keep the legs strong. Stretch out. And we're going to alternate one leg and arm. So we'll take the right arm, left leg. Lengthen out. Bring them back up. Inhale. Exhale across to the opposite side. Try to keep the back flat to the floor and the legs straight. If you do find that your legs start to bend, don't take them so low. It's tempting, I know, but it's better to do what you think is probably half. That'll actually be stronger, but it'll also be safer. So you'll build up the strength to be able to come into this longer version at some point in the future. Whereas if you just do it with bent legs, you're risking pulling muscles in your lower back and giving yourself some problems. And ultimately, not making as much progress, which would be a shame since you're working quite so hard. And take the last time coming up. And bring the knees back in. We'll bring the feet to the floor. Now, as we do, relax the breath out. Inhale the left leg to the sky, turn the toes out, come into a figure four. The left knee goes forwards, sitting bones away as we come up onto the tippy toes of the right foot. We'll draw that leg in, take one hand through the center, one hand on the outside of that right leg. And let's stretch the leg out a little bit, bring the foot down, take the opposite leg high, rotate, and allow ourselves to come into the second side. And release. Extend the leg out, give a little shake, and the foot down. We'll take the first leg back up again and move into the figure 4 shape. This time we'll take the arms out wide, so we're not grabbing hold of the arms. We're going to take this into a side twist. We're going to let the legs roll over to the right side, foot to the floor, and the left knee points up. This top leg to be a vertical shin. Flex the bottom foot a little bit to turn on the outer hip muscles. You'll feel them engage a little more. You'll feel the buttock fire up a fraction. And then we'll roll that back on an exhale. Extend that leg up, give a little shake. Foot comes down, realign if you need to. Right leg lifts, rotates out, and we bring it back into that half figure 4. And then we slowly roll over on the exhale towards the left. Then you can flex the bottom foot once you've managed to get the top foot to make contact. If it doesn't, then keep the foot unflexed, relaxed, and see if you can just allow the body to roll in. We try to keep the shoulders flat to the ground as well. Lift ourselves up. Shake it all out. Feet back down. We'll wriggle out through the hips, and we're going to come into Shavasana. So find the block. Remember, it's behind the head. There. And slide the heels out gently along the floor to the corner edges of the mat. So just have a little wriggle through the shoulders, the hips, wrist, ankles, fingers, and toes. Just close your eyes. We've got about 4 minutes of Shavasana, so I'm going to keep quiet. Just look in the lips and then breathe. And we'll begin to wiggle the fingers and toes. Let the wrists and ankles join in. Breathe a little deeper. Use that energy to stretch out in any way that feels good. And we'll slide the heels along the mat. Bring the feet back in, and then let the knees come in. Just like an easy hug. Take the roll onto the right side. Take a breath. Use the hands on the exhale to press back up. Just ease ourselves into a seating posture. Let the hands going towards the heart as you close your eyes. Taking a deeper breath. And a slow exhale begins. Chin drops. Belly draws to the spine. And we bow seamlessly towards the ground. Sealing our practice. Inhaling up. Head lift, the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you for joining. Hope you enjoyed. See you on the mat soon.